So we're here today, and we want to get to know a little bit about yourself, about Wavy Footy. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And what's your company's name?
For sure. My name is Josh. From Ogala, New York. I'm Ghanaian, first generation Ghanaian American. And as you brought up, my company or business is Wavy Footy. It's a sports media platform, specifically a football media platform, focused on highlighting culture within sport through the lens of black culture for men and women's football. So that goes photography, fashion, music, art, you name it, just to be able to shine light on the sport in many different ways that we didn't have growing up here in the U.S.
That's beautiful. Bringing all the aspects of the different layers of it, right?
For sure. I mean, listen, sport, it's interesting how it brings together community. I always say sport is community, physical health, and mental health. And so just promoting ways to bring people together through that. It's been fun, it's been cool.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. And how did, for example, football, what did it do for you?
Okay, that's a good question. Football, what did it do for me? I mean, at first it definitely, brought my family together. It was a sport that was passed down in my family. So definitely my father's passion led to my passion, as well as my brother. Even my mom, she'll watch some games with us. Definitely friends even. Some of the friends within Wavy Footy, I'll shout out, Kendrick, Gabe, and Sebastian. Kendrick I used to play with in high school. Gabe, we met during college and whatnot. And it's always just been able to bring a more global perspective, and just world news, as well as even culturally a lot of overlaps, which, being here in Jersey now, but even being, from New York, able to see all the time. So it brought that into another realm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you kept your culture, your heritage, you brought your hometown, your upbringing, and then you brought your passion, which is football, and you molded it all into one.
Hey, man, that's all it goes.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So tell us about Wavy Footy. How was it created? When did you create it? And why did you create it?
Okay. I would say the when was 2018. It's interesting. France won the World Cup in 2018. And I co-founded the Wavy Footy with Gabe. We met in 2016. That was during the Euros during the summer. We both were doing the engineering program. And so we were able to watch, Portugal win that. But when we saw France won the World Cup, for us, it was a lot of just first-generation African players that won.
So true.
And so it was like, listen, at the end of the day, Africa won the World Cup. There's a certain amount of representation that we saw within that team that we haven't seen within just, American soccer, which is due to how expensive it is to play. Keeps communities out. And so we're like, hey, we need to bring at least a voice, or at least a vision, actualizing that vision of what it could be. And so that kind of answers the why and the when. But no, it's been real cool, honestly, just to be able to connect the diaspora through that, and to see, honestly, the soccer scene changed too over time. The World Cup's coming next year, and our goal was always listen, 8 years down the line, they say it takes 5 to 10 years for a business to grow. So we have some time. Let's fuck around and figure it out. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I always think about, so I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
And when I came to the States, soccer wasn't popular, And what you just said, the pay-to-play, is really what holds back the U.S. for taking that next level, right? Because all the athletes are in this country.
That's true.
And so, to your point, if you think about all our countries, whether it's Asia, Latin America, Africa, Europe, all these countries, the best players go to play because they want the best player. But here in the States, the pay-to-play system really holds back so many communities. And like you just said, especially immigrants, first, second generation kids that could dominate the world. Honestly.
Yeah. It honestly just holds back talent, which is unfortunate to see. It takes a while, honestly.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
But we're breaking these barriers down, right?
100%.
These interviews one day at a time.
Yeah.
So where did the name come from, though? Wavy Footy.
Okay, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever got that question for real, so I appreciate that. Right. But I'll say Wavy. In general, Wavy is something that you'll hear, in the U.S., in New York a lot. You hear it in London a lot. Something that brings the diaspora together. And so our whole ethos was making football wavy, making football cool in a sense. Because Because at the end of the day, growing up, soccer doesn't have the best rep out here, in terms of was it the coolest sport to play?
Exactly.
Even myself, I'm a big basketball fan, play basketball, and my basketball friends, they'll definitely talk a lot of shit about soccer, vice versa. But it's like, there's a lot of moments, there's a lot of how do I describe it? There's a lot of things about football that aren't highlighted that makes it really cool for communities outside of the U.S. And so Wavy Footy. It's funny. A lot of people actually during our first couple of years used to think that we're out in London because of that, because of the name. But it worked in our favor too, because we're able to grow globally, show that connection, and at the end of the day, it's a global sport.
Bruv, we're world class. Hey. We're worldly, right? We're worldly.
It's a fact.
So, what would you say were some of the struggles you dealt with when trying to build the company?
Okay. Long list. Long list. I'll definitely say, there's different layers, as we were talking about before, within just structurally and logistically organizing a business.
Administrative.
Yeah, you know what I mean, those type of things. But even just, figuring out the ethos and the communication of it, every single social channel has its own unique tone of voice, has its own unique pace and consistency and flow of just information. So, you start with Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and whatnot. That's how we're able to meet and connect. But, and so figuring out, just the technical aspects of that. Expanding outside of that, it's just improving the quality of the product in terms of what are the things that not only people talk about, but people aren't talking about.
Very true.
Within building any product, it's looking at the customer's pain points, looking at their, POV and say, from them receiving information, how does this all make sense? We're trying to communicate a vision. I don't know. I always say, look at the earth in terms of how the world will, develop and grow and the way it's going and how you would like to see it grow to help others. So it's this is not something that's here at all. But, there's definitely been people who, close friends, when we started, they were like, what are you guys really doing?
Yeah.
Now it's I kind of see how it all adds in. But those are definitely some of the things, and consistency at the end of the day.
Kind of going back to the football thing, right?
Okay.
So one of the struggles, I think, where you can connect business to football is you have to have a team, right?
Yeah.
And I know, even internally amongst ourselves, we talk about the aspect of team, right? In a team, you have to have your forwards. You have to have that middle line, right? In that midfield. The defense, and then in my opinion, and we can talk about this. The goalie, who is in my opinion the most important player, or actually the hardest position to play, in my opinion.
Most underrated.
I say more than underrated. It's the position that you have to be equally as talented to somebody else, to all the other players, but you have to have a skill that most of them don't have.
Okay.
And then instinct stuff. So back to the question, right? Your team.
Yeah.
How has your team helped you? What would you say were the challenges of building your team too, right? Bringing somebody on, maybe sometimes just letting people go. The transfer window, right? Maybe some people got to go for a bigger contract.
Long season, go and come back for sure.
Exactly.
Bro, it's been interesting. I'll definitely say, like I said before, I've been very blessed with the friends that I've had. It's been a unique situation, the fact that we have, such a strong relationship outside of, Wavy Footy, outside of the football. These are guys that I care about, on a personal level already. As I said with Kendrick, I've been cool with him for over a decade. We go back to high school, secondary school days. It's crazy to see how it's all come back around. And with Wavy Footy, I actually started with Gabe. So being a mutual friend is always its own dynamic, but it's also very fun at the same time to see people just get along naturally. And at some point, you don't even have to play that role.
Yeah.
But no, I'll definitely say we inspire each other. Very, very inspired by Gabe, very, very inspired by Kendrick, and then Sebastian as well, who's joined with 5 Media.
Yeah.
We connected with him actually doing an interview through Fashion Friday, which is one of the interview features we do.
I've seen it. It's awesome, bro.
Appreciate it.
Sick stuff.
So it's one of those things where it's even that the ethos behind the Fashion Fridays and the Photographer Friday has meant to shine light on people and their work. Especially maybe 2019, 2018, team pages weren't tagging photographers.
Agreed, yeah.
So it's these people actually, putting a lot of work into their craft, into improving their product. And then with that, it's interesting to see how somebody that you are able to highlight might be somebody that, you're not working with and you spend all the time with them. So, yeah.
Shout out to the boys.
Hey,
Shout out to the boys.
So Gabe and Kendrick. It's a fact.
So What's one value you made sure you stood by while building your company? Something that you just never forgot, you never let go of.
That's a good question. Okay. There's a good amount. So that's why I'm trying to think of one that I want to highlight. One value. I would say, I guess consistency is one thing that people always say, but people always say that, so I'm not about to just bore you out. Flexibility, or just even just being open to evolve. At the end of the day, know your why, know the change that you're trying to make, but the name of what you're doing, as much as it matters, at the same time, you can't be too attached to certain things. You know, even like the role that you may play at a certain time can be attached to it. You actually have to, it's a startup mentality.
Yeah.
Whatever role needs to be taken on, you do that. And like I said, it definitely bleeds from the fact that these are people that I care about on a personal level. But it's just the reality of the fact that when you're starting something from the ground up, you have to just play every single role.
And be humble.
Be humble through it. Life will humble you if you're not humble, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's been cool. It's been fun in that way, but definitely stay flexible. Be open to evolve.
And it's funny, again, football analogies for days, right?
Yeah, it's a fact.
You know, one team, one day, you're the sweeper, right? But you join this other team, you're like, I gotta play forward.
That's true.
And so you gotta know how to be flexible, how to change position, how to adapt. So I love that, man.
That's true. Even on the same team, depending on which team you're playing. Look at a player like Kamavinga, bro. He plays a different position every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, maybe he's not always the best, but
it sucks.
It shows his
it definitely sucks.
adaptability, his all-around greatness.
Value.
Value. Perfectly said. How do you keep your followers engaged on your page and what you guys do?
Okay, that's a good question. Variety of content, you know, is definitely a way to keep people engaged. As you know, we're in the digital pollution era. That's definitely what I like to call it. You know, there's a lot of audience fragmentation, you know, just within sports in general and entertainment. But being able to offer different things. You know, it's like, okay, we touch on the cultural aspects of sport. You know, there's actually a book from Soccer Bible called Creative Soccer Culture. And it's a group that they've been, you know, growing as well. Shout out Soccer Bible. Been able to do some cool work with them. But at the end of the day, one of the things that they highlight within just that ethos of Creative Soccer Culture is it's not like people are looking for stats as much, you know, especially as we grow older. It's like, okay, like, you know, there's a lot of football history, there's a lot of comparison, but it's like, how does this apply to a lot of other, you know, aspects of just entertainment or just the world? And so being able to highlight that, you know, we have our Music Mondays. You know, we have our, we used to do Tactical Tuesdays and Throwback Thursdays. Those are some of the like trial things that we haven't stuck to, but they had a space, you know, in terms of how we grew. Photographer Friday, Fashion Friday are really great interviews there. We have graphics that we do with Five-A-Side Media. We have, you know, podcast clips that we do with Five-A-Side Media, which are more tangible for people. It's sometimes more digestible to hear voices explain what you're doing, as well as even just the phenomenon of American accents talking about this sport. You know what I mean? And so it's trying to hit it from all angles. You know, I can imagine there's more stuff that I'm forgetting. But it's just oversharing and, putting it in our words, I guess.
I love what you said about we're in the digital pollution, but at the same time, if you filter and fine-tune your content and all the creation you make, like, it's going to hit somebody, right? Somebody's going to absorb that information and it's going to resonate, right? I love that. With so much happening in football here in the U.S., with the Club World Cup, with the actual World Cup, the Olympics also right around the corner, where do you see the sport growing and going, and where does it move here in the U.S.?
Okay, that's a good question. It's a really, really good question. There's places I hope it will go. Right. We could talk about where it hopes. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, bro. But in terms of how I actually go, I mean, honestly, it just provides opportunity, I see, for a lot more cross-sport collaboration.
Agreed.
You know, cross-sport ethos. You know, one of the things that I've definitely enjoyed within the last year has been highlighting a lot of, for instance, basketball within New York and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Basketball and, you know, football have a lot of similarities.
Agreed.
You know,
the
and
culture
so
is very similar.
Very similar culture. Even you know, you play both sides of the ball.
Both sides, yeah. Sprinting.
You know what I mean. The wings are very isolated movements. My basketball coach always loved soccer players because of our footwork.
Okay.
There's a lot of footballers, our basketball players that even would say they played soccer back in the day and whatnot growing up. And so being able to have these moments of, okay, there's a lot of football, and I'm going to answer this in another way too because I'm making this very basketball focused. But that's probably the best example of another sport that could basically merge with the hype and the passion that hopefully will be grown within, you know, soccer. You look at PSG and Jordan. That's a great collaboration between two sports. It's like, okay, am I inspired something within the MLS? You
Brought a lot
know.
of eyes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of eyes, yeah.
American fans, it's interesting to see, for instance, at my last job, there was this one friend I had, a coworker, and we were talking about her love for Arsenal. Her trajectory into becoming an Arsenal fan was the fact that she followed the 2010 and 2014 World Cup.
Okay.
I'm saying those were both great World Cups.
Great World Cups, yeah.
You know, for her, football left when the World Cup finished because that was her introduction to football. And so then she was like, where did it go? You know, and it's like, no, it goes on.
Going.
It still goes on, you know. And
it's
so
gone great, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so hopefully, you know, to transition into my second answer, hopefully it just boosts the local league. You know, it's very easy to be like, okay, football is going to grow, it's going to unite community, you know, pay to play will stop, regulation will happen, you know, all these things, whatever. But at the end of the day, hopefully it actually just brings more eyes to the MLS, which in turn can just help the sport grow, help people feel more connection to the sport, because if your local team is what you support, it just picks up from there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Speaking about World Cup, we just had 2010, 2014.
Yeah.
Two very different tournaments.
That's true.
Great tournaments nonetheless. Out of those two, what would you say? Which one did you enjoy the most?
Okay, that's fair, you know. I'm trying to think.
2010 was
South Africa. Spain. Iniesta won.
That's when Tiki Taka was at its prime.
Yeah.
Nobody could beat them, right? They were like 15 games undefeated. Actually, I think the U.S. beat them.
Okay, they were 15.
15, and I think U.S. actually broke that streak.
Okay, shout out to the boys.
Shout out to the boys.
Nah, man, that's interesting. That was definitely before counter-attacking football took over. Heartbreak, you know, Ghana. We went to, you know what I'm saying, Suarez. Well, forget about that, though. I'm trying to think. 2014 was what, Germany?
Yeah.
Germany
and Argentina. Messi carried them boys.
Yeah, it's true. No, honestly, Argentina could have took that. I'll take 2010. You know, being in South Africa was a special moment, especially for the local fans. Honestly, to witness that as a Ghanaian fan, I'll never forget when we actually played the U.S. Asamoah Gyan, you know, his overtime winner. I was with my auntie. We were at her place, and she ran out the place. No, for real, she ran the whole place. She was screaming, both arms up. She was yelling. I'll never forget that. It was a really, really cool moment. Definitely, you know, very prideful moment.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. And hopefully, we could get another World Cup back on the continent. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Man.
Agreed. Favorite Ghanaian soccer player?
Favorite?
It was coming. You know it was coming.
Fair,
I think you wanted to say somebody,
that,
but you were hesitating. So I wanted.
Favorite? Okay.
Top three. Then.
Top
three.
I have
this
to
is your
think.
favorite. We're not saying like.
Yeah, the best. It's true. That's fair. I have to think, man. This just makes me think of my dad. Because we talked a lot. Favorite ever. I mean, you know, I could shout out Tony Yeboah. You know, he always used to talk about Tony Yeboah. He used to talk about Betty a lot. And yeah, if I could shout out another one, he's a Chelsea boy. I could shout out Essien. You know, he did a lot. Yeah, he did a lot for the Premier League and just, you know, Ghanaian representation there. Shout out Kudus as well. Kudus doing his thing. Yeah. Right now, West Ham.
Yeah. The boys are showing up. And again, it's crazy because similarly for Mexico, right? I feel like a lot of our players, like, they're homegrown and they break it in our countries, right? And the very few that go out sometimes are scared to go out, right? But then the ones that do go out, and they like stick to it, because it's one thing to go out, it's another thing to stay there, right?
Sure.
And then once they break it, though, all the barriers that they break down, you know, that leads to, you know, the next generation. And imagine who's to come, right? Let's talk about you again. So 5-A-Side Pod is another great way for you to connect with your audience and keep them engaged with your brand.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to stay current with football media and be prepared for a new episode?
For sure. No, it's definitely very pivotal. You know, football moves very, very fast. And so within 5-A-Side Media, we're obviously able to have these conversations, you know, previewing, you know, upcoming matches, upcoming events even, also recapping. And it's ever-flowing. You know, there's a lot of evergreen topics that will always be discussed. You know, some of our most talked about, I guess not most talked about, I should say, but some of our most engaging clips and content have been on things related to, as we talked about, you know, first, second, third generation players and their place within the sport. You know, or just pay-to-play model within the U.S., you know, or the infrastructure of, for instance, streets and roads are over here, you know. We can't play street football out there, you know what I mean?
Not with this cold either.
Yeah. You know, the weather doesn't help up here at all, but it's like, okay, like how do we just, you know, put our takes together, you know, and we have authentic different views, which, you know, creates good discussion, so.
Agreed. I like that. How deep do you get into the football culture? So let me break this down, right? A lot of people, I think a lot of content focuses on the pros.
Okay.
But, you know, something we talk about is what about the Joes and the bros, you know?
Okay.
And I distinguish those two because I feel like pros, Joes, and bros, like a Joe could have been a pro sometimes.
Okay.
Right? But maybe for whatever happened, you know, the term is average Joe, but average Joe is somebody that just, it has to work, right? So, a lot of times there's a lot of average Joes that has so much potential, right?
Okay.
And then you have the bros. I'm not gonna lie, I'd consider myself a bro. Like, I love the game. I grew up playing it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play as much, so I didn't grow as much.
Yeah. Okay.
But the bros are important too. So
just to break down for the viewers, the bros, the Joes,
and the pros.
So
how important is it to have and bring them all into the mix, right?
For sure. I mean, it just carries when you're able to. What's the word? How should I say it? When you're able to shine light on all the layers that you brought up, it's able to also bring people together. Because not everybody can be the pros. You know?
I'm not even a Joe, man. I want to be a Joe. I want to be like you guys. Okay, I'm serious.
Hey, listen, you're already there, man. You're already there. But no, it's honestly all the levels and layers matter. That's how the sport is passed down. That's how the sport is carried through. Because at the end of the day, I always say the beauty of football isn't within these big organizations, the Manchester Uniteds and the, you know, the Liverpools and the PSGs. For me, it's honestly the fact that, you know, you could just bring a ball to, you know, put two shoes on one side, 2 rocks on another side.
That's so true.
Everybody make happy, bro. You can live wherever, you can be struggling, but at that moment in time, you have a lot of happiness and passion. I was just talking to this one guy out here not too long ago, assistant coach for Rutgers, I believe, Peruvian.
Okay.
And we're just talking about the passion for the game, you know, and how his passion for the game has led him to, you know, come to this country and continue to, like, you know, help develop kids and youth. At the end of the day, that's what it is, and passion connects the pros to the bros to the Joes.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
I like that.
Hey, we came ready, bro.
Hey,
we came ready.
Brought it back together.
You know what I mean? And so no, there's no. Seems like a hierarchy, but man, like at the end of the day, the highest level, the pros, is really exciting to see quality football. But it all starts from the passion as kids, which I think is also the beauty of sport. It's one of the few professions where it's like all these players hopefully liked what they were doing when they were in their youth.
Yeah.
Not everybody liked doing what they do.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's very true.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to talk about you. So you said you used to play, right?
Here and there, yeah.
So tell me, like, what was football for you? How did so you started? I know young. It's in you, right? It's in the family. Yeah. Talk to me about your dad, his favorite players.
For sure.
Your auntie, like.
Yeah.
Where the passion is there. So how was your career? What was football to you?
What was football to me? I'll definitely say football was always an escape from reality in a sense, and a way to express myself. You know, I'll definitely say, you know, football is where I'm probably the loudest, you know, when I'm yelling for the ball or yelling to pass the ball.
Yeah.
It was a place of family, not only from watching, together. I think it's interesting. I started off on the right wing, playing a lot, and my grandpa used to play right wing, for instance. And so that was something natural. I didn't even know. I learned that years later.
Wow.
So it's within the genes.
It's in the genes, exactly.
You know what I mean? But no, man, it's been really beautiful to see, just honestly, like how different, not even just family but friends also take to the sport. For instance, Kendrick and I used to play FIFA all the time.
Okay.
Definitely.
We got to get a game going.
Hey,
I'm decent.
Yeah.
I play FIFA better than I play in real life.
Okay, fair.
There we go.
That's funny. Okay, fair. That's good though. You know what you're doing on the sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
There's this element of competition there. That's been cool with friends. But no, football has always been a way, like I said, physical health to mental health and community.
Huge.
I still play it, honestly. Anywhere I've gone, in the U.S. or even abroad, listen, if you don't know anybody, go somewhere and play.
Field, right?
Bro, listen,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just staying fit, it's fun. It's fun at the end of the day, so I still try and play when I can, and I always tell the guys, like, listen, we can't just be football media. You can't just sit on a pod. You can't just sit on your ass and talk, man. You got to go
Hear
on
that, Ricky? Go play, kid.
Don't sit on your ass, man. Yeah.
So, but did you play? You played college ball?
So I played college club.
Club.
It was interesting.
Which is still intense, man. A lot of the clubs I know,
yeah.
ballers.
It was good. Honestly, we had a couple club teams. We were able to play in one of the Ivy League showcases, which was real fun. We were able to travel for that. It was interesting balancing that with engineering. Definitely,
I did want to ask you about that.
Yeah, it was definitely hectic at times, and I think during that time was when even my relationship with football changed at certain times. But it's always been something that I've kept through. I played throughout school, all throughout high school, all through middle school youth. I think one thing interesting to even highlight too is the fact that especially being a first generation kid, your parents sometimes when they come here, it's not like they know the system within.
That's true.
There'll be times that I've been able to play, and for instance, my dad has told me, like, one parent has asked him, like, oh, like, your son plays for this academy, looks like he plays for this. He's like, no, he just likes football a lot, he trains and all that. But there is a certain lack of visibility anywhere for any parent if they just move to a country and
that they don't know the language, the culture, how things move.
Yeah. Just the trajectory to be able to grow within a sport.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate enough to. This has me just thinking back to my young days.
That's what I want to hear it.
For sure. But there's been really, really key moments of support. I feel like that have validated me. I feel like football's always been something where I felt like, okay, like this is something I'm naturally good at. I remember the varsity coach pulled me up like I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
Towards the end of the season, he pulled me up, and it's not like I was playing much. It was more so for practice and to travel with the team. But there was a period of time he was even taking me on the weekends to train with me individually. I don't know what happened with it. Listen, I asked my parents all the time, and I can imagine they said, listen, at some point, just focus on your books. But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, like this is actually a moment where somebody sees potential in you. And it transfers to everything.
It gives you confidence.
Confidence.
Validation.
Yes, a lot of affirmation.
Young men and women and people, just when you're young, you need that, right?
That's
so
true.
You want to feel like, okay, like and you're telling me you're 8th grader, but the varsity coach is looking at you. So that does something to you. You're like, okay, I'm not just like out here kicking the ball, doing drills. Like I'm actually doing something, and somebody's seeing the fruits of my labor, right?
It's true. No, that was a great moment. Shout out to John. But no, like that type of stuff also, it gives you more confidence to apply, what you've learned in other ways. For instance, a funny anecdote, and it just, came to my mind because you brought up FIFA. I don't know how you're good at FIFA. But I used to tell my younger brother all the time, like, younger brothers, you have to go through the rite of passage. They always get beat in FIFA.
Of course.
But I always tell my bro, like, listen, play legendary mode, man.
That's true.
Stop playing amateur, stop playing beginner. Lose a couple times to figure out, and honestly, that's just the mentality for life. You have to learn how to swim by drowning, bro.
I love how you're telling me, like, it was always your passion, but you're doing this while you're doing engineering. So we don't talk about the cerebral aspect of the game. It's a lot of, like, you're calculating things at a certain speed that it's unfathomable, right? And you're using your feet, and then people don't talk about, you don't use your hand, but you're using your hands to balance and to, like, shield, balance.
It's true.
It's little things, right? So hand-eye, foot coordination.
Always checking.
Always checking, eyes up, right?
Yeah.
Look at the ball short, but eyes up. And
honestly, trying to see the game before it happens. No, I would definitely say like at the highest level, quality football is very, very beautiful to watch.
When they put it all together, right?
Yeah. You know, a team is able to provide a good movement off the pitch. You know, whether it ends in a goal or not. You know, even a good defensive sequence. You know, so no, it's true. And definitely FIFA teaches people about the game. Yeah. That's one thing that's really cool, and hopefully can even help the game grow here too.
Yeah.
Through the video game.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Buzz, my friend, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man.
We hope to do some more collabs.
Of course.
Yeah, man, this is first of many.
First of many. Shout out world class football, man. Appreciate
Thank you, my brother.